Oh, hi, hello and welcome. My name is Dionne Roberts, and who I have with me right here, this special, wonderful woman, is called Phoebe Leona. And she has a company called Nomad, Always at Om, which I resonate with in so many ways, the nomadic way, the Om way. Just love her branding. And she's the creator of a movement expression called Mvt109.
Well, first of all, thank you, Dionne. I'm really excited to be here. How do I find rest? That is something that I'm definitely finding new ways to do every day. Resting for me has become a space of stillness and stillness without expectation. I think that, coming from a yoga background, we thought that meditation was sitting still and, clearing away the mind. And what I've really come to terms with, meditation looks different on everybody. And I think that rest can look different on everybody. So even within my own day-to-day, rest and meditation can look different from, a meditation could be sitting still for a period of time, but it also the next day could be movement, my movement practice. And I find that rest doesn't have to be still in terms of movement, but rest can also be still through cooking or through being present with someone. I think that you can still be in that rest state. It's basically bringing you into the parasympathetic nervous system is what rest is to me. And you don't have to just be laying down on the bed, going to sleep, which we're going to get to do in your retreat, which I'm excited about. But yeah, I think that it's being still without expectation.
That sounds beautiful, being still without expectation. So
Yeah.
in the essence of that, going back to, I don't know however long, but have you ever had challenges with being still without
Oh,
expectation?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, as I said, meditation, coming from a yoga background for probably 20 something years. Yeah. Before that, in my previous life, yeah, was dance. And so I've always been very much a mover. And, my mom even said that I was dancing before I was walking because I was in the Jolly Jumper, kind of moving around before my feet could actually walk on the ground. So I have always been a mover. So that first time I went to a yoga class, being still in my physical body was hell because I just wanted to move around. And then it was that stillness of the mind, right? And so, because what I had always found was that there was stillness within the mind through movement. So it was very challenging for a long period of time. And I think that I still work through it. I still have challenges. It's not something that I now, here I am teaching, yoga for now 15 plus years and I've got it, check that off the list, right? We still are working through those challenges, and they might be different challenges than what they were 15, 20 years ago, but they're just new challenges. So I think the no expectation has come more recently of, okay, well, this is what it looks like today. All right, let's roll with it. you know, Before I didn't have that. I had expectations of what it was supposed to look like, or what my teachers look like, or what, the Buddha looks like. So, and then, yeah, this whole idea of rest. I mean, we're both in the Western world. Rest is not something that we're encouraged to do. So there's even an expectation too of rest to a certain extent.
So
Right?
there,
You're like going,
so both
sorry.
there's the external look of what we think rest is and should be. There's the inner
Yeah.
expectation of getting there rather than enjoying the journey. And then on top of that,
Yeah.
you're right, we do have this society expectation upon us as to be more doing rather than finding the stillness from within, and even looking
Yeah.
outside to find that stillness within. How does this
Yeah.
play within your own life, and has that ever interrupted your sleeping habits and your sleeping patterns?
Sorry, can you repeat the first part one more time?
How has society's impact on rest and activity, or rest versus activity, with us living in the patriarchal society of doing, getting, regardless of being a yoga teacher, being the creator of the movement that you do teach now, although you're in that world and you're trying to live it, embody and teach others, nonetheless society's impact upon you, do you feel that it has an impact upon you, and how does that affect your sleep, your sleeping habits, your sleeping patterns?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's a really relevant question too for all of us who've been, in some sort of form of a lockdown almost a year now. Because I don't think that I realized it was just such second nature. I didn't feel that society had imposed that kind of doing until just this past year of realizing, oh my gosh, it was just so natural. It was just so intuitive. Being a dancer, I had to do the hustle. I'd always say this word hustle, like I was always out doing the hustle of getting a gig, and then even teaching yoga. But I thought that, oh, it was my choice. It wasn't like I was working for the man doing the 9-to-5 job. I had this freedom to do what I loved. And so I didn't feel like society was imposing it on me, because I was making a choice to do what I love. But now that we've been still together in, this sort of a lockdown since, March last year, I'm realizing, oh my gosh, I really was out there, pushing myself, doing. Of course, of course I'm exhausted. And so I've really come to value this time of being still here and not having to put 500 things on my schedule, bills, or feel like I have this self-worth of being this teacher, whatever it is. But it's funny how we've all kind of somehow scheduled lots of Zoom dates, Zoom meetings. So we somehow intuitively were like, oh no, I have to do right again. But I've been enjoying this time of rest in that respect. In terms of my sleep, that's a good question too. I'm not sure what the answer is yet. I've always been a good sleeper.
Oh, really?
I've always been a pretty good sleeper. I mean, there are times where I'm in the hamster wheel, there's something particularly stressing me out, a worry or something. But over the years, I feel that I've gotten better and finding tools that help me, kind of get out of the hamster wheel of thoughts. So I'll have to sit with that a little bit more and get back to you.
I think you're very, very lucky to have not had any sleeping issues or challenges throughout your life. And so you're one of those people that, like, you put your head on the pillow, within 10 minutes you're out.
Pretty much. Well, I will say, so I'll give you a little bit of a little inside scoop of what Phoebe's head looks like as a child. So I used to have a lot of thoughts as a child, and I would lay in my bed and I'd imagine there was this vacuum in the back of my head that would suck out all of the thoughts from the day, and I would just watch them go. And I didn't know what meditation was. I didn't put it together until I, started practicing yoga, however many years later, 20 years later. But yeah, it's meditation, right? So I that's still my go-to sometimes. I'm like, let's put the vacuum on.
I mean, that is just if you don't mind, could I use that in a yoga nidra? I mean, in yoga nidra, we talk about feeling the contact of the back of the head with the surface that the head's lying upon. And by doing that, without the words of what you just said, that is exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
And that's just amazing that you intuitively got there. At what age? What age did this come to mind?
It was probably, I'm thinking about the timeline of my life. I think it was probably when I was around 7. when things started to get really challenging in my life. So I think it was then. Maybe it was a little bit before, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think a vacuum's a little aggressive.
No, well,
But
Poorly. I just, it's
that's
it's
all I
that
do.
it's
But
that
yeah,
sensation.
yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, take it with it. I'm
love
sure I got
it.
it from a guru in a past life or something. I don't think
Yeah,
I
you
can
tell
do
her that. At 7, the younger we are, the more connected we are to the higher self. So yeah,
that.
it came through beautifully. So
Yeah.
before we go, there's two things. One of the things I would like to ask you is, well, three actually. What does
Okay.
the rest and digest in reference to the parasympathetic nervous system, how do you work with that?
How do I work with that in terms of my practices, my daily practices? Well, my movement 109 practice is very much, that's what we do is our intention is to get you into the rest and digest state of the parasympathetic nervous system. So we lie down on the ground, and when we come to your retreat, we'll be lying in bed. We come to lie down on the ground, and we do really gentle organic movement in the body to drop down a little bit further and further and connect to the breath, and to recognize patterns that we're holding in the body, and then having choices. I always ask you have the choice, what is here for you now, to drop it. Yeah, just to put it down, and not an aggressive way, but just you have this choice to maybe put it down for a breath, right? And then how does it feel to not pick it back up for a breath? And then kind of walk you through. So it's a bit of, I almost think of it as like a yoga nidra, but with a gentle movement. So I use my movement practice a lot to restore my body in the parasympathetic. I love yoga nidra. I love restorative yoga. I studied with Jillian Pransky, who's really well known in the United States. I studied with her for years. And I teach that as well sometimes. And yeah, I mean, I have other just regular practices. Even I find reading drops you down into that state. If it's not like a novel that's like, turning pages and gets you excited. But yeah, I feel whenever I can be still and focus on my breath, can drop me down into that place pretty quickly.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So in reference to this creation of Mvt109, where do you see that going, and how do you teach that? How do you facilitate that? I mean, this is your creation, is it not? Could you tell us a bit more
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, well, and I'll say it's just, we call it Movement 109. The branding is MVT because it's like a movement, like a classical movement. And then 109 is stillness, the guru bead, right? After the 108 malas, the beads on the mala, we have that 109th bead, which is the guru bead, where we take that pause, that stillness, and pay reverence to our teacher, right? And so I love this idea of playing between movement and stillness. So that's what the practice is. It's really about creating vibration right through our movement, and then noticing how that vibration might shift and change within the stillness, or how it just continues on. And even in the stillness, there's still a vibration. There's still this opportunity to change your frequency. Yeah. So we do. Yeah, and so what we'll offer in your retreat is just the first half of the practice is on the ground or in bed. But the second half is this whole experience of dancing. And maybe we'll dance a little bit in bed. We might do a little bit of that. I think so. But yeah, that's still restful. But there's a whole arc of the class, almost like a yoga class, right? We usually start some sort of centering. There's, something maybe sitting or lying down, and then we come up and we do those bigger poses in a yoga class, but we're dancing, and then we bring it back down and rest again. And notice how through that movement, more that ecstatic movement, right, the vibration changed again, right? And that might be a release of something old, a pattern, or it might have been a manifestation of something new, or both, right? And the way it's offered, I mean, that's sort of the arc of the experience of a class. But I also work one-on-one with people who are looking to make a change in their life, or maybe they're going through some sort of trauma or past trauma that they want to unravel. And I work one-on-one with sort of these movement practices and some other somatic therapy practices too, just to help them acknowledge it, bring it to the surface and awareness, and then we can release it. So it ebb and flows. It has different formats, but those are the two that I'm working with these days.
When I'm looking forward to the whole thing, not just the laying down bit.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, because of the 109 and it being, the last speed you focus in the union with your guru, that is actually why you, something technical, never mind. Actually, you, I didn't realize that is actually why you make malas. And in that same verse, you also said the name of your podcast, which is Spaces in Between. Would you like to tell us a bit more about that and how people can find that? Although it's going to be in the details of the prep book for the retreat. But tell us a little bit more before we go about Spaces in Between and where people can find you so that they can work with you one-to-one.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you. So Movement 109 and the podcast, The Space in Between, Nomads, The Space in Between, they came out of the same experience that I had an opportunity to offer a TEDx almost, is it 3 years ago? I think it was, I can't remember. I think it was 3 years ago now. And I did a dance. I talked about life as a divine dance, and it was my story of my space in between. I had this really kind of crazy, tragic year of 2013 where my father passed away, and I went through a divorce and some other things. And then I was in this space in between of what next? What is that going to look like? And so that was what the TEDx was how I kind of made something out of a tragic experience. And what I realize is that we all have these stories and they need to bring them to light. And so I really hold space on my podcast for other people who come on, and I'd love to have you, by the way, come on and share their experiences, and so that we remember that we're not alone. And I think that this past year, I should say, of 2020, we all came to terms of feeling so isolated, so alone, but then realizing that we're not alone. We're actually all collectively in this together, whether it's called a pandemic or whether it's just, as you and I were discussing before we started the recording, you and I have a health issue that we both have been dealing with or have dealt with in the past. There are so many threads that we don't realize until we actually are open and vulnerable and share, and we look at each other and say, I'm the same. We're all cut from the same cloth. And so my intention for the podcast of The Space in Between is to remember, especially in those times of struggle, of challenge, in the space in between of what the old life was and what you're becoming, that you have this opportunity to do what you like, bring your fullest expression to life for all of us, but also that you're not alone as you're doing it, that we're here for you. I think that's all I said. That was all you asked for. Oh, and how to find me. Yeah. I have 2 websites. So my business, Nomad, always at Om. That's OM. Yeah. Nomad always at om.com. And then my website, PhoebeLeona.com. So, and that's just my name and .com. And that'll have over there, that'll have myself and Movement 109 practice. Nomad will have our virtual offerings, and we have a community membership and our podcast and lots of goodies. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. And
thank you, Dionne. I'm so excited.
Full class with you. And the link to your podcast and everything like that will be in the prep book for all those who are coming on the retreat. And I would just like to say thank you from my heart once again. And you're a sister to me. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm so excited, and I'm really proud for you that you're putting this beautiful weekend together. I think it's such a beautiful idea, especially in the midst of winter, for all of us if we're in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's an honor to be a part of it. Thank you for even thinking and inviting me.
Of course. course, saw your work, and I had to. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
So bye everybody, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye everyone.
Yeah.